Welcome to our 2024 Classified Professional and Leadership Development webinar series. Before we start, I just want to make sure that you know we do have closed captions for you if you prefer to use that. I am Dingzhou Curry, Director of LIFT, which stands for Leadership Institute for Tomorrow here at Cal State Fullerton. But our programs are all designed 100% for community colleges, because I come from the community colleges and my heart and soul are still in the community colleges. LIFT offers a variety of programs from webinars like this to institutes, workshops, and publication Lift Your Voice, all of which are sponsored by the California Community College Chancellor's Office. Today's seminar is also sponsored by the Chancellor's Office. We work very closely with the Chancellor's Office team in developing these webinars for our classified professionals. And since our spring seminar series have been designed for classified professionals, your professional and leadership development, I want to give a big shout out to the California Community College Classified Council Senate board members and working with me and the LIFT team in the planning process for these webinars and for the participation of our webinar panels. I depend on them to distribute to all of the colleges in addition to the Chancellor's Office distributions. This week, it was just this week earlier, I was talking to a company, corporate CEO, and I was talking to them about LIFT and the webinars. And she asked me, who are the classified professionals? Because that is a new term. They don't understand. So I explained to her this way. I said, oh, you don't know who classified professionals are? I said, for us in the higher education system, we address classified professionals are dedicated individuals with our education, within our education system, who work in various capacities to support student success, whether on the front lines, in the back offices, on the grounds, or behind the scenes. Their efforts are crucial. And when they are not developed or they have issues, we feel the pain. They're like the essential connective tissues, these muscles for our organization. They really enable us to function and thrive. That was pretty much my answer to her, to who are classified professionals. Well, the response was, wow, important people. I said, yeah, very indeed. Classified professionals are important people in our organizations, and they enhance your capacities and skills and leadership potentials, really make a difference to the effectiveness of all of our organization, each college campus. So if the Chancellor of California Community College System wants to accomplish her Vision 2030, we must first make sure everyone's capacity are enhanced and leaders are groomed and to take on the task. So speaking of Vision 2030, I like to make sure that if you never heard of them, that everyone is aware that we are all working as a system toward these goals under Chancellor Sonia Christian's leadership. So first is the Vision 2030 under Sonia Christian's leadership is something that we really want to focus in the next few years until 2030, of course. The strategic directions for Vision 2030 are equitable baccalaureate attainment, equitable workforce and economic development, and generative artificial intelligence. And then there are three major goals for 2030 for this vision. Goal 1 is equity and success. Goal 2 is equity and support, equity and access. So you can see this word equity is key. I've said this many times. And to me, by providing equitable professional and leadership development for classified professionals, is a first step toward equity. Today, our topic is maximizing your impact. You make a lot of impact as classified professionals. And the topic is about this, how to maximize your impact, unlocking your leadership potential for workplace excellence. So identifying and nurturing leadership potential is crucial for many reasons. Recognizing and developing your leadership ability not only help you lead your own personal and professional life, it also contributes to overall excellence and growth of your work and in your career. So from top leaders, identifying hidden gems in the organization also help bring out, I think, the brilliance for the entire organization. If you can imagine the organization, your campus, your district opens up the treasure chest, your own treasure chest, and you'll be blinded by the radiance of those gems. And those gems, I'm talking about classified professionals, as well as faculty. Though we have a lot of gems, and some of them are hidden. Some of them need polishing and recognizing. So today you will learn some insights into how to uncover the gems inside of you, that hidden leader, some coaching skills or unlocking your potential and strategies to elevate your excellence. And of course, as always, some essential skills for your leader success. So please take notes to review 24 hours later tomorrow, or take notes to share with someone right away, because that would stay in your long-term memory. And I want you to write down something also while you're taking notes. Something you heard, make a start by it that you can take immediate action on. So before I say any more, let me introduce you to our wonderful panel today. You are in for a treat. First, Amparo Medina from 4CS own Director of Governmental Relations. And she is also, that's her side job, by the way. That's her state system leadership role that she does as a service, right? Amparo, for her day job, is the Student Activity Specialist at Oxnard College, serving in the classified professional role. We have two panelists at the CEO level because I want them to share how their experiences of finding and polishing gems. So I have known them, both of them, for a long time, and could definitely testify to how their work in developing leaders. Dr. Lee Lambert, Chancellor of Foothill De Anza Community College District, and Dr. Greg Schultz, President of Citrus College. And then we have many of us called Pamela Haynes the Queen Mother in the field, because she has supported so many on the ground level. She is with me at the Women Leadership Institute at Amend every year, modeling continuous learning and supporting leadership development by her participation. So she's not just sitting in Sacramento. I see her in many different places at the ground with us. She has served at the Board of Governors for California Community College System for a long time, and she has chaired this august body of systems top leaders. Her everyday job is and also serving as Board of Trustees at the Los Rios Community College District. So I want to welcome all of you and thank you for joining our LIFT webinar today. So let me get started with our president and chancellor. So as CEOs, I know you're doing talent shopping, right? Those hidden gems that maybe others don't see all the time because you want talent. So what are some signs or characteristics that indicate someone has untapped potential for higher level leadership? They could be more. You see that. Can you share an example of how you identify a hidden leader, and in particular in a classified professional?
So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Ding Zhou and Lyft and the State Chancellor's Office and the Classified Professionals Group for having me be part of your investment in your future. So thank you all for joining us. So I'm going to flip the question around real quick, but I'll put it in a context, just so everybody knows. I started out as a classified professional a long time ago as an office assistant. So I come at it from that lens always, first and foremost. So I'm always looking for potential. So wherever I go, whether it's a conference, whether it's, leadership forums like this, whether I'm walking around the campuses or on committees and so forth. So I'm always keeping an eye out for who's taking initiative, who brings a positive problem-solving focus to really supporting our mission and ultimately the success of our students and our community. Someone who has strong communication skills, whether I receive something in writing or whether it's a verbal presentation. And, and what type of influence and persuasion do you have with your colleagues, especially to advance our mission in support of our students? And then do you have that emotional intelligence and the ability to be self-aware, to demonstrate the level of empathy and compassion and your ability to adapt? So those are the kinds of things I look for when I'm out there, out and about, always thinking about bringing on board our great professional staff in the classified ranks and hoping to grow them much above that and beyond.
Thank you, Dr. Lambert. Just to add a little bit, I also want to identify with my roots, or sort of, we think sometimes of our foundational start, I'll say, as a college student and in higher education as a career. And in my roots, I'm a California Community College graduate. I attended Fullerton College and then transferred to Cal State University Fullerton. This is not a plug. Wait, actually it is. Go Titans. But in my very first full-time job out of Cal State Fullerton was as a classified professional as a member of OSHA. So I worked for the Orange County Employees Association, specifically the County of Orange Auditor Controllers Agency. And that was the agency that hired many accounting and budgeting staff members at the county. And so as I think about being given more responsibility over the years and the sorts of characteristics I see, I also think about how much I learned from observing others, my peer classified staff members, and those who I worked with, my supervisors and managers. So thinking about that, I think there's so much that I learn and that each of us can learn by observing, by listening and asking questions. And so characteristics of someone who may indicate untapped potential, I think someone who's curious, inquisitive, do they ask questions? Many times we can tell that someone's not just doing an important job, but they're personally interested, they're passionate about the work that they do. And because we're blessed to serve in roles that are serving people, right? Our colleges serve people at the core. Those are really great skills, in my view, is someone who's interested in learning, but are they humanistic? Sometimes things happen to us in all of our jobs where it's like, oh, that didn't happen the way I thought it would. So unexpected things can happen. How do we respond? How do we respond? I think someone who demonstrates ability to be coachable, interested in learning, and who treats their peers, other people, with empathy and care, I think are some incredible characteristics. And it makes me wonder, let me support this person as best as I can, because not only are they doing their current job well, they have so much more ability that others could benefit from.
It's great. I like what you said, having that curiosity, to want to learn more and be more, right? And also this care that you see. A lot of times we do see people who demonstrate a lot more care than others. Thank you for that. Well, our classified professionals who do not have manager or supervisory titles often don't see themselves as leaders. So I want to ask Amparo this question of you. As a classified professional, do you see yourself as a leader, and how have you adapted that leader identity?
Thank you, Dr. Curry. First, before we jump in, I just want to give a quick little plug and shout out to our classified professionals who are involved in graduation this week. I have the privilege and honor of coordinating our graduation at Oxnard College, and we had ours yesterday. And I know without a doubt, it could not happen without our classified professionals. So all of you who are involved in upcoming ceremonies, I know the students are grateful for everything that you're doing. So thank you to our classified professionals on that. And then I guess myself as a leader, I see myself as a leader through advocacy. I get involved. I ask questions. I will say I used to be one of those, right? We talk about like ask questions. But sometimes when we ask questions, I started to catch myself apologizing before I would ask the question. Like, sorry, it's me again. And then I realized like that really comes from a deficit mindset. And if I have the question, more than likely somebody else in the room has the same question, right? So I ask questions, and I also know that working with students, right, they watch me. They watch what I'm doing. My peers watch what I'm doing. So if I'm apologizing, it's going to put that sense in their head. Well, why is she apologizing? Should we not be asking questions, right? And I think coming from an area where I work with students and work with classified professionals as part of Classified Senate, I think it's important to lay that foundation that it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to not know everything. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves, like we need, I should know this, or we know how this process works, but I only know what I know, right? And so if I want to learn more, I have to ask questions. I have to get involved. I think we're part of, we are a student serving institution, and classified professionals work with students in a very intimate way. When you're talking about their basic needs and you're talking about financial aid, those are intimate parts of a student's journey, right? And classified have the honor of being a part of that and walking them through that. So I really think as myself as a leader, as classified professionals see themselves as a leader, we are leaders because we're advocating for our students. We're advocating for one another. And when you build relationships, relationship building is so important because it allows us to also advocate for the needs of our colleagues. So I really think it's about embracing our experience and our knowledge. I know that somebody could tell me, this is the way to do it, but when they connect it back to their own experience, it's like, okay, that makes sense. Or, okay, I've been there. I get what you're saying, right? I understand that fear. So I really think that's important, like as far as being a leader and sharing those experiences, sharing that knowledge. And I definitely see classified professionals in general as leaders.
Great, and I hope they all do. I wondered, a lot of times I have this curiosity. I wonder if I take a survey statewide of all the classified professionals, are you a leader? How many would check that box? Yeah. Well, next, I'm going to turn to you, Pam. Ever since I have met you, you just appear as a top leader. So I don't have any image of you not being a leader. So Pam, can you, given your position as a strong leader at the highest level in our system, having served as president of the board of governors before, were you ever a hidden leader and not knowing that you are a leader? And if so, what helped you change that hidden leader to a recognized leader by others and by yourself?
So thank you for that question. So the answer is yes, but I never thought of myself as hidden. I thought of myself as a really, really good worker to get things done. So it was this list of things that I did well because I was tenacious. I was hardworking. I wanted to finish a project successfully. And so I have to tell you that people saw something in me that I did not see in myself. And when they saw it was, increased responsibility, but and then I was a person where almost everything I did was sort of new for me because I didn't have family role models. My mom was someone who worked part-time as a grocery cashier. My dad was a bartender. And so I too was an observer of how people got things done. And I really want to focus in on folks saw something in me that I did not see in myself, and yet I followed their direction. So for example, I was part of a union, and the union leader brought me into an administrative position. I had no idea, and gave me a project to do. I had to go to LA Trade Tech to figure out what union folks needed to do to build this program within the union. So that was one area. But one thing leads to another in many cases. And so that particular program was seen by consultants at Harvard as being a forward-thinking program that had never happened with the company. And it was a union company program. And someone again saw something in me and said, you should apply to Harvard. I laughed at them. I had 2 kids, and it's like, I don't know, I don't think I can go to Harvard. I'm in California. But along the way, and I ended up going to Harvard and doing well. I came to Sacramento. Someone saw something in me and said, you know, there's an opening on Los Rios. It's a vacancy, and you should apply. I didn't believe the first person. A second person came along and said, I think you should go and you should be a trustee. A third person, I did 3 people to say, Pam, you need to do this. And I did. And 25 years later, last week was 25-year anniversary as a trustee. And so sometimes it requires us who don't see ourselves as leaders to move in those positions. And so, yes, begrudgingly, I do now see myself as a leader. But it has always been about what can I contribute? And the folks that give legitimacy to me are really the students. They are the ones where I could honestly tell them and everyone else what my story was as a community college student. So yes, and I think we need to listen to those angels in us that say, you can do this, and then step out. So I am now willing to say, yes, I am a leader, humbly say that, and say that hopefully I am a servant leader, and also to say that my best position as leader is to serve from behind.
Thank you, Pam. You are certainly a servant leader. Now, I don't know what happened, but your camera, we can't see you, Pam.
Oh,
there
so
you go.
sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Can you see me now?
You appeared.
I had a piece of paper up there. I apologize.
That's all right. Okay. Next, Amparo. You know, I tell you first, before I ask you this question, that is that I have been coached by others, and since then I've coached others as well. And it's been very helpful, of course. I would like to ask you, Amparo, have you ever been coached or coach others as well? So tell us what that experience is like and how you benefited from it.
I have definitely been coached. For me, it's really important to create relationships. And we keep talking about this, networking relationships, because I want to be able to go to people that I trust and they're going to give me honest feedback, right? And I have to be open to that, even if it's critical feedback, because I'm not going to grow if it wasn't for that. I feel very honored that I have a great college president, Dr. Oscar Gobian, my VP, Dr. Leah Alarcon. I can go to both of them. I have colleagues, faculty, classified professionals, other supervisors, my students, right? And I'm always looking for feedback. Even, you know, with this webinar, at the end of the day, those who listened, I know I'll go to my colleagues and say, okay, well, you know, is there anything I could have done differently? I think that coaching equals mentoring, right? And they're synonymous with one another. And I want to be the best version of myself, and I want to continue to grow. I also want to make sure to not, as I mentioned, not look at it from a deficit mind, but like not what can I do better, because that means I'm already saying I didn't do something correctly, right? No, it's what can I change? You know, how can I be more effective? I think that coaching, mentoring, it's a critical part of our professional development. And then that naturally for me, because I am also, what my job equals is the advisor to our student government. So I work with our student government, I work with their leadership development. So I naturally get to take on that role of mentoring and coaching, giving them feedback. They're going to relate to me more so when I have that experience to say, hey, I've been through this and, this is my experience with that. And, maybe try something a little bit different or whatever the case may be. So I think that coaching and mentoring is an invaluable opportunity that exists. And it really goes back to creating those relationships, because if we don't create those relationships, we're not going to feel comfortable asking somebody like, oh, hey, what could I have done differently? And people aren't necessarily going to come to you and say, because it is a very, I don't want to say a fine line, right? But it can either be taken as like, oh, I didn't do this, or they're being very critical of me, or you take it as, now here's an opportunity for me to grow. And yeah, I appreciate what you're providing me with. Let me change this when I do it next time, or whatever the case may be. So I have been there. It's something that's very important to me. I will go to, Dr. Colbion a lot, like, hey, this is what I do. I know that I'm a very direct person. I can be very direct. And so I recognize that and say, hey, before I'm going to say something about any topic, especially if I know there's that possibility of me being too forthcoming, I'll ask for feedback like, hey, how can I kind of phrase this? So I'm not trying to be mean or rude. I want to get to the point, but I also want to do it in a way that's going to be, the receiver is going to be open to what it is that I'm saying. So I think mentoring is very important in coaching.
Thanks. Now, hearing that, I'm going to turn to the two CEOs. Can you unpack that for us a little bit? Because if someone's hearing this for the first time, they say, okay, I know what that's important, but what is that all about? This coaching process. So as presidents and chancellor, you do a lot of coaching, I know. So can you share a success story where coaching played a significant role in unlocking someone's leadership potential? And what's the most important element in that coaching process?
All right. Well, I could start with that. Thank you. First of all, I go back to so much of what I'm able to do and still learning. I've learned from others, others who've guided and coached me. But I think back to an early example, early in my career, where I was working in the role as a manager, and another colleague, a classified professional, who was not in my immediate department, but worked on the same floor in the campus that we worked at. And I definitely noted like her interest in doing her own job well, but being open to learning and taking on more responsibility and kind of exploring her career further down the road. And so at the time, I remember she was thinking about, she had just earned her bachelor's degree at Cal State Fullerton, and she was thinking about going to graduate school, possibly to earn a master's degree. And she knew that later in my career, I'd gone to a certain graduate school, university. And so she said, could I ask you about your experience there? And based on my interests, would you recommend this type of a program or that type of program? So that just being willing to ask was wonderful, because it allowed me to listen and say, well, from my perspective, you might consider this, you might consider that. But it's a reminder too, as a manager, as a leader, and I know many of us do this and think about this. We always want to lead with an open door, do whatever we can to invite others to feel comfortable, to ask questions, to explore. I always found that when I had questions as a classified professional, and even as a leader today, most people are more than willing to share. They're happy you took an interest, and they go, oh, good question. As it turns out, here's my experience. So let me just briefly wrap up this one example. So this person did enter a master's degree program. Later, she was promoted from public affairs assistant to a district level position and did a great job. And soon after that, learned more and was appointed to director of campus communications at a college in a multi-college district. And today she happens to work as the executive director of external relations communications at the campus I work at. Now, I didn't hire her here. She was already working here when I was asked to serve as the president of Citrus College. But this is another reminder. We're a wonderfully big system. We're a big aquarium. We all have the same mission. There's a good chance that throughout our careers, we'll get to work with someone at more than one place. But yeah, just that's a little bit about of a story. I've been so inspired by my colleagues' career journey that really started, like so many of us, in an important classified professional position and a desire to help even in another way.
To build off of Dr. Schultz's example, I remember being at a leadership academy here in the state of California where I'm on the faculty, and one of the participants came up to me and started asking me a series of questions, one of which I remember was, so she was in another state at the time, and she felt like she had kind of hit the ceiling in terms of her ability to move up. So I asked her, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? What's your plan to get there? She really couldn't answer those questions. And so I worked with her and I said, you know what? Sounds like you probably ought to consider looking at other opportunities. Have you thought about looking at other states? So then fast forward, next thing I know, she applied for a job at Shoreline Community College where I was the president. I didn't know that at the time, but she did, and she ended up getting the job. And while there, again, we continued our ongoing relationship. And then as part of our ongoing conversation, she realized to move up, she needed to go on and get additional education. So she ultimately enrolled in a doctoral program and successfully completed that. She's now here in the state of California. I won't say where. She's at a director level position now, and she is well positioned to move from there to the next level. And I think one of the pieces that really came out for me and this is over years now, is this notion of self-doubt. Just not, I hate to say it's fear but that lack of self-confidence, not sure how to move forward, but just having the conversations, I think, got her unstuck and realized you have to put yourself out there. And if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. I always say to people, real meaningful growth happens at the intersection of growth and discomfort. And so that growth opportunity comes when you are uncomfortable, but you're willing to keep pushing through it because you have a plan and a goal ahead.
That's great. I love that. That's being uncomfortable, right? It's working. I was talking about muscles earlier. Yeah, indeed. When you're stretching your muscle, it doesn't quite feel good, but you're getting stronger. Thank you for that. Okay, well, let me ask Pam. You coached a lot of women of color and men of color too. I see you do that along your journey. So how can someone use coaching skills to uncover our potentials?
So I'm going to approach it from the blessings I've been given as someone who gets called upon. One, I always say yes, whether it's for coffee, whether it's a phone call, because I've been around all the time, and I'm in full belief that you got to give it away. Why should I be holding on to some of the experiences, and hopefully they will provide some window for others to get some information, a perspective that they may not have gotten otherwise. And what it allows me to do, but also those who I coach or mentor, allows a time for introspection. And I think that's really, or to see something that has been there that they haven't looked at from that perspective, which means for most of us, it means growth. It means expanding from a different vantage point. And then what it also does, it allows them to have new insights. There may have been a door that I've said, and it was just in passing, but they hadn't thought about it. So those are the kinds of, and I'll use, and I'll close with this. I'll use Liz as an example. Just graduated from the University of San Francisco. It's the summer, and she has been awarded a internship in my office at the legislature. And she comes and I give her all of these assignments. She comes back and they're complete. And then I give her a higher level assignment. And it comes back, and she's not my first intern, and nobody comes back with it all complete, okay? And then she comes back and that one's complete too. So she's getting this higher level of responsibility. And so she gets a job. I make sure she gets a job in my office. And then she tells me, and she hangs on. She basically, at the end of the internship, she says, I'll work for free because I have not been able to nail down the job with my boss. So she comes back, she shows up on time for this internship that she's not getting paid for. And so when she gets that job, I said, okay, so tell me your secret. She says, well, I asked all of your staff because I didn't understand what you said when you asked me to do X, Y, and Z, and they helped me out in trying to translate for you. I said, well, that was wonderful because that's what you're supposed to do. She had the skills to bring a cadre of my staff into her thinking so that she could do a job well done. And that's what mentoring does at every level of our work, is the willingness to make friends, and to ask questions and to do the work, even though you might not quite know how to do it. And so that's that. And so she still now at higher levels within the legislature, staffing the speaker's office.
Oh, thank you, Pamela. I heard you say job well done. So let's talk about that, Greg. Why is it important to talk about elevating toward one's own excellence, being well done, but moving from good to great?
Well, I think with anything we're up to, being intentional is really powerful. It allows us to focus on the goals that we have for ourselves. And I think in that space, one of the most powerful tools we can have is reflection. Certainly the trusted feedback and guidance and input from others that we trust is so important. But I think also for each of us, and myself still included, being able to reflect, kind of to see, how did the week go? How did that meeting go? What did I learn? What might I do differently? It's something that as scholars we go through. We have to practice, refining. Athletes go through it. They practice, they rehearse in their mind, like, if this scenario comes up, what would I do? So in the same thing, in serving in higher education, I think reflection it can be a very powerful tool in our efforts to elevate excellence and grow.
I'm so glad you said reflections, because I really do believe that a leader who cannot reflect, self-reflect, or help others to reflect for you, which we heard earlier about feedback, is hard to grow to that higher level. I'm going to ask some part of this question. Why are we striving toward that excellence? We also struggle. So what are some of the struggles that you see classified professionals have toward either focusing or reaching their higher level of excellence?
That's a really good question. I think sometimes, I think we doubt ourselves, but I think we sometimes doubt ourselves because of the culture that's being created at our college. I know that when I first joined Classified Senate, for example, when I think it's like been 8 years now, I remember hearing about interactions that would take place between faculty and classified, or management and classified, and there was this hierarchy in a sense that some people believed took place. And I really think Oxnard College has done a great job at embracing all of our different constituencies, our groups, bringing us together, creating a sense of inclusivity. Because I think that maybe back in the day, right? Like prior to myself coming, that there was this level of like, well, they're faculty, and I watched this and I've heard it's classified, right? They go into a committee meeting, they're like, well, I don't really say anything because like the faculty are in there and they have the degrees. Guess what? So do we, right? And one thing I've learned is it's very interesting to me, but classified are very humble and they're not as outspoken about their degrees, right? I've learned about it, classified professionals who have PhDs. I would have never known. Would never known unless it was just something that happened across, I crossed paths with them on something and see like, oh, you have your PhD. It's not something, they're very humble about it, right? And so I think that is the biggest obstacle, I think, and struggle that we face is we think that we don't belong in the room, we don't have anything to add. And the reality is we have so much to add. And I will just piggyback. I appreciate everything that's being said about schooling. If anybody here is right now, you're debating, should I go back to school? Can I do it? The struggle is real. It will be there, but I promise it's worth it, right? I'm in my own program. I am scared every single day. I struggle with it, but I know that like at the end of the day, I don't want to give up. When I was, debating on whether or not to go back, I finally realized, okay, I'm going to be 3 years older regardless. Like that's not changing. So am I going to be 3 years older with this degree that I want to get or without, right? I'm the only one in my way of getting that done. So anybody on here listening, I highly encourage you, if you're debating on, should I go back for that, a bachelor's, a master's, your doctorate, just do it. Just do it. The time is perfect and the time is now for that. So.
I agree with you. Just do it. Yes. Okay, I'm going to turn to Lee. You work with and observe so many classified professionals. So what are some specific strategies that you witness to be effective in helping them achieve excellence and excel in their own roles and, of course, career advancement?
Well, first of all, I want to say to Amparo, way to go, because it's one of the things I usually say to people. Time's going to go by no matter what. It's a question of what you decide to do with it. So kudos to you and keep going. You'll get there. So I think you also really exhibit what it means to be a leader. And thank you for what you're sharing, because I think I want to build off of what you've said. I think it really, to put it in one big umbrella, it's about embracing a growth mindset. So as you start to embrace this growth mindset, it's that focus on continuous learning, right? Never stop being curious. Engage in these types of leadership conversations, but it doesn't stop her in there. It's also, what are you reading? What are you watching? Who are you talking to? So building strong relationships are very important, sharpening your communication skills. I can tell you once upon a time, I would never have spoken publicly. I feared it with a passion, but I also realized if I never got past that, I could never be where I am today. So please don't hesitate to sharpen that communication piece. It's so critical. And then always, take that initiative, seek challenges. Don't wait for them to come to you. Seek them out. Come to your supervisor, your manager. Say, I have an idea to solve that problem. And let me explain to you, because I always tell people, don't tell me all the problems. Tell me solutions to those problems, because lots of people can identify problems, but very few people can come forward with meaningful solutions that solve the problems. So I'm looking for problem solvers. And don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. Who's going to know? And you said it, Amparo, there's lots of classified who have the education. We don't know that. But if you don't share that you have that education, then how am I supposed to know that? And don't be shy about it. You're as equal as anybody else in the organization. And then, serving our community. It's great to do the work you do at your respective districts and colleges, but also be out in the community too. Share your leadership with the broader community. I think that's a very important message. And then align your goals with the institution's goals. Show that you are about the mission and fulfilling that mission in support of our students and our community.
Thanks, Lee. Pam, I was going to ask you this question. That is reality check. Sometimes, like our students who come into the doctoral program, they're committed, they're going, but stuff happens in life. Okay. Shift happens, changes, something happens. So can you give some advice to those who have experienced some challenges and setbacks, for whatever reason, there's setbacks, to still maintain that focus on doing their best in excellence?
So I mentioned earlier that the students gave me permission to tell my own story. And my story was I started at Santa Monica College right out of high school, literally right out of high school. Spent 2 years there, didn't get a degree or a certificate, but found the man of my dreams and married him. And then I needed to step out because I needed to get a job. There were at least 6 stop outs. I had to go back to Santa Monica and continue my education. Then I got pregnant with my first and had to stop out. And then then went back to work and then got pregnant with my second and had to stop out. And needed to stop out. And as they got older, I went back to school and I had to do it while working. And so what I would say is, and my father used to say this, if there's a will, then there's a way. And evidently, I really wanted to do this, else I would have dropped out. But there was something motivating me. And I think that what I would tell others, what is that piece of you in your heart, in your soul, and in your gut that motivates you to keep going? I transferred to UCLA, and what should have taken 2 years took 4 years, because I had to do all of those other things. But each of those pieces of the journey made me a better person. And when I look back, I kept on saying, I don't know how I did it, but I had folks in my corner who had faith in me, in particular my kids. And so what I would say is there are going to be challenges in our lives, in the work that we do. And it's sometimes those challenges that don't go right, that teach us the lesson. Sometimes it's the lesson of perseverance. And so just keep on keeping on. And if it's your aspiration and your dream, you will end up doing it.
Thanks, Pam. I'm looking at the time, but I'm going to squeeze one more question in for each of you. So, Amparo, what are some skills that you have garnered along the way that proven to be beneficial that you want to tell others, you got to have this?
I'd say for myself and others, it's using our voice. And you know, Dr. Lambert mentioned, not everybody feels comfortable voicing their opinions publicly, or, you know, or going to that committee meeting and saying things. So that's why I think it's important for those of us who do have that skill set to make build those relationships, right? Because when I work with my colleagues and I find out from them, you know, hey, how can we better support you? What are your needs? I can advocate on their behalf, right? And I think that's a really important skill to have. Relationship building, getting involved. Go to professional development, things like this. When we have conferences, if there's opportunities to sit on boards, I will tell you, an opportunity presented itself for 4CS and sitting on the board, and I raised my hand. An opportunity presented itself for sitting on the Colegas board. I raised my hand, right? I want to get involved and I want to get to know people and learn from them. I also think an important skill set is to give ourselves grace and patience. We think we should have the answers to everything, and it's okay that we don't. We put high expectations on ourselves, which only stresses us out. Nobody else may be able to see that, but it stresses us out, right? And so I've learned to be patient, give myself grace, the same grace and patience I would give my colleagues or the students I work with. I think another skill set is taking accountability for our actions, be willing to learn from things, and honesty. Sharing our lived experience sometimes, because life is not always easy. Going back to school, I will tell you, in my doctoral program right now, I struggle all the time. I'm going into my last year and my dissertation scares me. It scares me to no avail. And I will be honest about that, because I know there's going to be somebody else who's going to go through that same experience, but I'm not giving up, right? I'm still here. And I think it's important to know, like, not everything is going to be flowers and roses. There's going to be struggles that we're going to face, but it's those experiences. And when we share them with one another, we help build our community and help build others. So that way they can continue their journey as well and know that, yeah, there might be these bumps in the roads, but there's always a finish line and we can get there as long as we continue to grow and believe in ourselves.
Great. Thanks. Pam, when you choose a leader, what leadership skills do you look for?
So there's a whole list, but I think some of the most important ones, someone who listens sometimes more than they talk, who's introspective, who is a collaborator, and a team builder. Someone who in the midst of the craziness has the ability to bring people together, to get the work done. And who recognizes who also, for me, recognized my own personal deficits, because I want to find those who have those qualities to make the team a full team. And so those are the kinds of things, and that who truly, truly from the bottom of their hearts care about the work that they do, no matter how small the task, no matter how big the task, that they actually care. And in the business that we are in as a community college and working there, who truly care and can actually see our students and who they are.
Thank you. Greg, you know, everybody I meet who work with you or for you or one time or the other, and I see that you have the entire college, you're a fan at Citrus, okay? So I want to know, what leadership skills have helped you to be such a successful and a very effective leader?
Well, that's a nice thing to say. I think that some of the most important skills have been a lifetime of listening and observing. Certainly doing, but there's so much I've had the benefit to learn by being around others, learning from them. I've learned a lot about what to do. I've also learned in different agencies about what not to do, and we can learn from both. But I would say that's important. But I think another important thing is learning about ourselves. Who are we? Um, you know, mid-career, and I've had so much good fortune, I feel like, to be asked to serve in different roles. But there's that point, and I think someone mentioned earlier, sometimes we call it imposter syndrome. We all encounter that, like, oh, am I doing this right? Am I good enough? And at some point, I had to learn and was able to learn that it's not so much about, what do presidents do? Like, what did the previous president do? Maybe I can copy that. No, it's about taking the experiences and wisdom that you have, but really being your authentic self. Because when you are caring for people and you're leading people, I think that's something that's important and that people really appreciate. And so as a leader, I also try to invest in others and really encourage them to learn about themselves and to be their authentic selves.
Thanks. Okay, lastly, the last question for the panel
Yes,
is
and I
that
think I'd go back to, I mean, it's been said by Greg and Amparo and Pam, your lived experiences matter a lot. So don't run away from them. Use them as fuel to jettison you to the person you want to be and you will be. Also, continuously seek feedback. But when you do that, be genuine about it. Don't go ask for feedback when you really don't want to hear something you don't want to hear. Keep that in mind and don't worry about how it was said. Take the nugget of what was said and be honest and self-reflect on that, because that's where your opportunity for growth will come. Some people are better at providing feedback than others, but don't miss the nugget in what the feedback is. And anybody can be your mentor. I've learned more from people who I don't ever want to be like than you can ever imagine. And so everybody's your mentor, whether it's formal or informal. So always pay attention to people around you. And you can learn from that little baby all the way up to someone who's retired. Everyone has something to teach us. And then I'll just close with this. Two songs that I love. One is The Climb, and one is I Hope You Dance. So Miley Cyrus, The Climb, you're never over. It's a journey. It's not a destination. And Leanne Womack, I Hope You Dance. Be the best person you know you can be.
thank you. Thank you very much. Well, thank you. And please help me thank our wonderful panel again. I hope you have gained a lot of insights and at least one thing that you can use and find to find that hidden gem inside of yourself. So I did ask you to challenge for action. If you have something that you thought of that you can share your thoughts, Myra, can we open up the chat? You are giving them the evaluation. Please fill out the evaluation because your feedback is very important for us to plan future webinars as well. And speaking of future webinars, we really want to have you join us. This is the last of the spring series. In the fall, we will have other topics and maybe involving others as well. So we hope that you will continue to check in with us on the future webinars, and please fill out the evaluation for us. Your feedback is very important. There is a link Myra is putting up, and click on that before you go to your next meeting. And we'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. So we thank you, and we will continue more webinars, as I said, in the fall with new topics. And once again, I want to thank our panelists and thank Myra Mario, who has been in the background, for all the help and support that she gave me to put up our webinar series for you. Have a great summer, everybody, and we see you in the fall.